talk about Chicago, Chattanooga, I feel like Birmingham is kind of mimics that on a smaller scale. I mean, everywhere like I said, our office building, there's two companies on the floor. It's us and TQL.
The trucking industry is crazy right now, and being a broker can be stressful. Managing your invoices, billing, collecting, carrier base, and cash flow can feel like an impossible task. But I can tell you, OTR Solutions has figured out the impossible. They eliminate cash flow problems for carrier payments and ensure margin funding in just 24 hours with broker invoice factoring. OTR Solutions takes care of billing and collection processes with your shippers. And with lightning quick and accurate invoicing, your customers will never need another broker to handle their freight needs. Kick back, relax, and let OTR take care of your brokerage. If you want to know more, and I hope you do, check them out at otrsolutions.com/freight-caviar to see what they can do for your business. Or give them a call. They love to talk to brokers at 770-882-0124. We've partnered with Ascend TMS, the world's most popular and top-rated transportation management system. It's the ultimate tool for all your freight needs. You can use our referral code RA-FreightCaviar to receive 3 months of Ascend TMS for free. It only takes 20 seconds to sign up and no credit card is required. You can click the link below to learn more. Will Hopkins, the co-founder at BlackBox Logistics, based out of Birmingham, Alabama. Thanks for coming on the show, Will. Could you give us a little short introduction on who you are and how you got into logistics?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. So I kind of stumbled into logistics about 6 years ago. Had a friend who ran an agency in a nearby town and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And he gave me a shot at brokering some freight. And pretty early on, I decided, hey, this is, what I want to do for a career. I was over there it was a Roadrunner agency, really the brokerage arm, Ascent Global. Was there for about a year and a half and actually lived with two guys at the time that I worked with. And after about a year and a half, we were like, hey, we want to do our own thing. So we left and started a company out of the house that we were living in. And that was about 4 years ago. So we were under some contracts. So we started a third-party dispatching company, which I don't know, brokers are probably familiar with them, booking some loads through generic dispatchers, but we're dispatching, owner-operators, small fleets, just doing the paperwork, bookings, invoicing, all that good stuff. Wait out those contracts. Then about 3 years, 6 months ago, we started the Brokerage, which is an agency model. So we broker our freight through a company out of Wisconsin. And from there, it was us three in that house. And now we're up to about 30 of us. And been doing that since.
Very impressive. I'm kind of curious before we dive in deeper on all what you just said. How is the freight market, not the freight market, but the overall landscape of freight brokering in Birmingham, Alabama? How does that look like? Because obviously the Chicago, Chattanooga, and is it growing? Is it getting more popular? A lot of people working in freight?
Yeah, it's definitely a hot spot. So you talk about Chicago, Chattanooga. I feel like Birmingham is kind of mimics that on a smaller scale. I mean, everywhere like I said, our office building, there's two companies on the floor. It's us and TQL. And so what's really popular down here is agency models, and you hear a lot about independent agents, single man shops. Down here, people scale them. So you have lots of agencies that might be running under their LLC name, but they're brokering freight under a company that you guys would recognize, like Matson or some big names. I mean, they're everywhere, man. Down here, it is kind of a hot spot. I think that the central time zone helps, and for whatever reason, Birmingham, man, there's a lot of us down here, a whole bunch.
Okay.
Well,
Very
man,
cool.
it's something off topic, but this is the funniest thing ever. My brother sends me a picture yesterday. He got a plaque from TQL, Carrier of the Year. Dude, I was dying because my brother's company. So I used to work for my brother. My brother used to have a trucking company. We kind of helped him grow it. And I guess they have a really good rep there. So they book a lot of loads with TQL, But we're on the other side. We're blocked with TQL. I have a whole like cease and desist letter from TQL. It's so funny. My brother literally sends me a picture, carrier of the year, or like full truck carrier of the year or whatever. I'll send a picture to you later, Paul. It's pretty funny. But that was like off topic.
Yeah, someone from TQL might listen to this podcast and then get you blocked. So not get you blocked, but get your brother blocked. Just because.
Well, they wouldn't know which company it is, So I didn't say which company.
For sure,
but,
for sure.
No, I mean he hauls good freight.
I know. I'm just joking. Nothing's gonna happen. Obviously, he's a good carrier.
Exactly. If he got a plaque, that tells you something,
Definitely.
But yeah,
that's cool. I'm kind of curious also about the agency model because you said it's kind of popular, Will, out in Birmingham, Alabama. Can you kind of tell us more about what the pros and maybe cons of like running an agency model are?
Yes. So the pros are, I mean, the overhead to get started is very minimal, right? Because I mean, you have a back office handling the carrier pay, your pay, buying the insurance authority, any kind of TMS software. So when we get started, I mean, like the only expenses we had, and again, like we're working out of my friend's house, right? So we didn't have any outside money or anything to like really scale. So it's all been bootstrapped, and it's you can really emphasize and focus on sales. So our first year in business, we did 3 million in revenue. Second year was 26 million. So
wow.
we were to do that under our own authority. I mean, there's lots of issues that would come. We wouldn't have been able to scale like that without outside money. You talk about being factorable, carriers not wanting to book your loads, having to pay, same day. You get into the nuances of carriers wanting, half the pay now and then the rest on delivery. People Excel, and then just the support staff to handle that much volume. They already have that in place, right? So we can focus on the sales and scale that way as opposed to kind of getting, held up with the rest of the stuff that comes with it.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I've had Brokerage MC before. I closed it down, but essentially just dealing with every carrier that wanted. Well, first of all, to get a carrier that would want to potentially take the load for you was difficult. And then have to pay 50-50 because you don't have a credit score or you're not approved by factoring was just really a pain. So that's like the first year or so, it's what a brokerage is typically working on. So you don't have that at the agency model. So it helps you just kind of focus on operations and getting customers.
Yeah. I mean, again, so when we first started out, we just didn't have the resources to do that, right? And then so I kind of gave you the pros, right? But the cons are, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're running an agency model, it's not like really and truly like yours. It's still like I'm a co-founder owner of BlackBox, but all of our business is through an agency. So it's a little bit different than if all that freight were to be through BlackBox Logistics.
Sure, definitely.
And it's tough to
an agency model, if I'm getting correctly, that's kind of like a global, what is it called? That company does
Global Trans,
right? Yeah, Global Trans. There's another one I think that does that.
There's a lot of them. Landstar does it.
Yeah, Landstar, exactly. Like Landstar, yeah. So that's basically what it is, right? You kind of go under a bigger brokerage and then you just broker out loads to them. Do they give you leads and stuff like that? And then do you get like different shippers like that? Or how does that work?
No, so I mean, well, you can, right? Like, I mean, they might have some leads, but for the most part, we're getting it ourselves. And so the model's a lot more common than you would think. I mean, you most likely are booking loads with a lot of agency models. You just don't know it because, again, the email address is going to be that corporate company, and they're going to be using that authority. Like you just don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's super common. It's a lot more than you would think. And then, but as far as our leads and our customers, I mean, we're doing things our way, getting our own leads, our own customers. I mean, we're our own operation, just utilizing their their credentials and their support, really.
Sure. That makes sense. That's cool though. I mean, it definitely gives you an upstart. And I feel like one of the most difficult things of having a freight brokerage is cash flow. So it kind of like gets you to focus on focusing on getting customers, securing that and lanes and stuff like that. So, I mean, it makes sense.
I think it's not only an upstart, but it probably gives you systems to follow too, because I feel like in any business, you have to have good systems in place and good software in place to use. So I feel like if you go that route, at least you have, certain systems and certain TMSs to follow, I guess, or use.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so what we're focused on now is kind of to talk about 3 million to 26 million, and that like, I mean, very fast growth. It's getting SOPs in place. You talk about systems, because it was a little messy. When we got started at a good time when the market picked up, and it was just, there was freight everywhere, right? So we didn't really have a chance to catch our breath and get things written down. And, this is how we do this or that. It's kind of just, winging it. I don't want to say winging it. We take care of our customers, our freight, but it was just a lot. So now that things have kind of settled down a bit and we got more people in place, it's good to kind of get some more structure and infrastructure moving forward.
Definitely. How'd you guys come up with the name BlackBox Logistics?
Okay, so I'm gonna mess this up, but essentially, my partner William, the one that just got married, that we were talking about, he came up with it. Right, we were spitballing all kinds of names, going back and forth, and finally he actually had a separate LLC. BlackBox is something I don't even know what the business was. It was some little company, but a black box is essentially a financial instrument, right? So you got input A going into the black box, and the output is going to be a greater sum. So that formula or whatever's happening in the box is the black box. So essentially, A goes in, whatever, B comes out, greater sum. So that's what black box is, and then obviously logistics.
Okay, got it. Very cool.
Hey there, amazing listeners. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on our podcast, we need your support. It will only take a moment, but it would mean the world to us. Please make sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to share with one of your friends that would enjoy our content. Your engagement helps us reach more people and bring more awesome episodes to you. Thanks a million, and thanks for being part of the podcast community.
I'm kind of fascinated always by that a little bit, trying to figure out.
We get a lot of people thinking it, I don't know, I think it's something to do with the military, like Black Hawk, Black Box, but it's it's a financial instrument actually. But it was a good one. It was better than a lot of the other ones that we had in the.
It's a cool name. It's definitely a cool name, and I feel like it's more unique than every other, like normal brokerage is out there, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, we thought that we were the first ones to come up with Black Box, but I was at the grocery store yesterday. They've got Black Box wine. There's some movie called Black Box out. I'm seeing Black Box everywhere now.
Oh, wow.
I like your website. Just real quick, I like going on your website because it seems like it's really like friendly and also kind of authentic compared to like a lot of freight brokerage sites where it's kind of just like, I don't know, for like a lot of freight brokerage websites don't look good. I really liked your website and I thought it looked well and it was authentic and friendly. Kind of like if I was a potential customer, I'd be like, okay, this looks like a cool team. You had every employee's photo on there, which was like, cool because not everyone does that. So I just wanted to add that. But Bob, you were about to say something.
No, I was just saying about the name that it's definitely different and cool. I'm actually trying to see the website right now because I haven't seen it yet. So I'm gonna check it out.
BLBX.com.
Yeah.
What is it?
ShipBLBX.com.
Oh, ship.
Yeah, or if you just Google Black Box Logistics, ship BLBX, it should pop up.
BLBX.
Yeah, BLBX.com.
And then if you go to the team, Bob, it'll have all the employees, like every photo, which I think it just shows like, it's your focus on kind of like, family oriented.
Yeah. Yeah. And your whole team is from they're all from Birmingham, from Alabama.
So, yeah, everybody's from Alabama. It's funny, the majority of our people. So we've got kind of a group of cities that's called Over the Mountain. So I'm originally from Vestavia Hills, and 15 or so of our employees I went to high school with.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Another 10 or surrounding schools where we kind of all knew each other just from playing sports against each other or being friends. And then we got a few from North Alabama, but it's it's an Alabama office. We don't have anybody that has come from anywhere else really. Pretty much everybody's born and raised Alabama and is from the area. So that's been pretty cool to be able to work with a lot of people that I've known for a while, right? And see how it's kind of all come together.
Definitely.
Yeah. Definitely cool.
I've never been to Alabama before.
Trip.
I know Bob goes there a lot because Bob
greatest
drives.
state ever, ball. Greatest state ever.
Really? Are you serious?
I don't know. It's nothing special to me. Huntsville is okay. I've driven through Alabama plenty of times. I like their bridges and they color up their bridges. Like when you drive through the night, you probably know what I'm talking about, right? They have all these colors on their bridges. It looks pretty cool. But Huntsville's all right, but there's not. It's getting better. I feel like there's more younger people moving in and stuff, but there's not that much to do. Like, would I move there? I would only move there because of my family, you know? If I like, that's maybe if I ever settle down or something, then I'll move down there. But for now, probably not.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's a lot of rural areas in Alabama, but Birmingham, Huntsville, they're pretty good spots. There's things to do, and they're doing some cool stuff in Birmingham, building some stuff. We've got to, a lot of cities have major league teams. We've got like all the minor league teams.
Yeah.
But Birmingham's not bad. I enjoy living here, and I think it's a good spot for us to be.
Okay.
Huntsville passed Birmingham now, right? Like size wise or people wise or something like that. I read an article or no?
I'm not sure. I mean, I wouldn't think so. Then again, I feel like Huntsville, maybe it's a larger space. They're counting the suburbs almost. But I
Could
would
be.
think that
Yeah.
Birmingham would be more dense for population. Then again,
Yeah.
I could be off, but that's what I would think.
I think my brother just actually invested in Birmingham and bought some real estate there for what is it called? Apartment buildings or apartment complex. Because he was
Yeah.
telling me he was looking into something. So, but no, I think the whole southern part has definitely been like growing and getting better, and they're just building a lot of nice and cool stuff. So I think anywhere you kind of go, any city you go to, around south, it's definitely improving and getting better. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, Bob, here's something that you probably don't know about Will. Will is a freight memer on LinkedIn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's how I got the invite on the podcast. Well, threw one up and I commented. I said I like the meme, and then he messaged me and it was like, "I'm sorry, I was in a rush. I should have given you credit, but how about I make you and invite you on the podcast?" So I got the invite on the podcast. You did the meme.
So yeah, you've had some memes like go viral on LinkedIn for freight. I like the one with the King of England, King Charles. Yeah, the one holding up. That was a good one.
Yeah, so we actually a few friends and myself, we made memes on Instagram. There's a little Instagram page. I'll give you the handle off the podcast.
I know which one it is. Which one it is. They were everyone was messaging me on Instagram or commenting in the comments when I posted that photo because I didn't give you credit. And I'm like, oh boy.
Which one is it?
It's
or you guys will tell me after.
Yeah, well, I have to message it to you after, but yeah, we started making them. I guess this is like towards the end of when Frank started picking back up. We were just it's a little group message. None of those guys we don't work together now, but worked with a couple before, and we're in a little just group message about freight. That Instagram handle is actually the name of the group message. We're just in there, talking about what's going on, this carrier, this customer, just freight stuff. We started making memes and send them to each other. We thought they were funny, and we're like, hey, people in the space would probably find this entertaining. Let's start throwing them up.
Memes are hilarious. I've been making memes since I was driving a truck like 7 years ago. I think that's where I started off. And like my memes in the beginning were so basic, but then eventually when you're more and more in it, you're just like your memes just get even more funnier.
Yeah, so more advanced.
It's a great industry to make memes, I feel like, because I don't know, it's so regulated, but at the same time it feels so unregulated, like it's the Wild West, like anything goes. That's why I love logistics, really. I come to work and I'm like, I don't know like what's gonna happen today. It could be just
totally
just things, and it's just normal. Like I'll be I was on vacation this past weekend for a wedding actually, and I was around some people that weren't involved in logistics, and I was talking about a situation and they just looked so appalled, and I was like, no, that's just Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true. No, it's true. I was shocked when I got into the industry. I graduated when I was 21, U of I, and then I was like, I got a job being a freight broker, and I'm like, damn, I had no idea this industry ever existed. And when I found out like all like the shady stuff that went behind the scenes, and it's like it was just it's crazy for me that like I don't know, when you're in college, you're like, okay, you're getting educated so you could step into like a professional workforce where everything's going to be by the book and professional, and it's like you'll become a freight broker and it's like people are swearing at each other, cussing all day, very unprofessional. You go into like work with shorts on and no one cares, and flip-flops, and I was just like, wow, this is like an industry I never imagined I would be in. But it is a cool industry for sure, and there's a lot of stories to be told on it. So I guess that's what's keeping us all here, which is definitely cool.
Well, I kind of wanted to go back in the beginning. You kind of mentioned something. So before you guys started your freight brokerage, or before I guess you guys were with someone else, you mentioned a third-party dispatching. How did that work? How did you guys do that? So I'm just kind of curious how
Yeah,
you guys are doing that.
so that's actually, I love doing that. And it's actually much easier than you would think. So what we did is when we set up a little LLC, the company name's Compass Dispatching Services. And so we had some relationships with carriers from brokering. And we kind of started there when we started to try to get some drivers. Well, I guess like backtrack first. I mean, we get a little contract written with the transportation lawyer. Hey, this is what we're doing. We need like an onboarding contract essentially for our carriers. Gives us power of attorney for like carrier setups, all that good stuff. Emails, just some basic stuff, right? And then we're getting drivers one of two ways. One, just previous relationships, but number two is where we got the majority, and that's through factoring company relationships. So, these factoring companies, they're incentivized for their drivers to gross as much revenue as possible, right? Because they're taking a percentage off of that. And a lot of the owner operators or smaller fleets just might not have a great understanding of like what comes with booking loads in like the spot market, right? Like all the setups, paperwork, invoices, POs.
Yeah.
It's a one-man show, trying to do all that on your own. So we're kind of selling those factoring companies on, hey, we're experienced, we can drive revenue for these guys, take good care of them, make sure all the paperwork's in order. Like if anybody needs help, kick them our way. And we tell them, hey, if we get anybody, we'll kick them your way. But I mean, just to be frank, we never really had anybody kick their way. But essentially we get set up on like a two-way referral, right? You send us drivers, we'll try to send you drivers. So we're just getting leads. I mean, really, we're getting extremely hot, like warm leads from these factoring companies. Like, hey, this is Bill with SOS Trucking out of Adel, Alabama. He runs 3 flatbeds. It's like looking for a dispatcher, and then we're calling them. We're just like, hey, this is who we are. This is the services that we can provide for you, and the way we charge is a percentage of the of gross revenue, right? And the way that we collected that gross, so when we first started out, we were like, hey, we'll just tell these guys to like cut us a check at the end of the week or Venmo, like whatever, something super simple. And then what we realized is like, hey, like nobody's really paying us. We're having to, it's like pulling teeth. So eventually we worked out with the factoring companies. Hey, like we're gonna need you guys to, and we get the carrier on board with this obviously because they have to approve it. But we charge 8% line haul. So hey, cut our 8% when you're paying the carrier for their factoring fee. Just disperse that 8% direct to us. And so that's what we would do. We scaled it through factoring companies, and once we got set up with the payables through the factoring companies, it was great. Man, super rewarding. I'm very glad I did it. I got to see a different side of the industry. I've never been on the carrier side per se, but also we started that like right before the pandemic. So we're signing on these drivers that are also like a lot of brokerages have authority time requirements, 30, 60, 90, 6 months, whatever. We're onboarding her like brand new authority for the most part. It's like an owner operator that just got his numbers, getting set up with a factoring company, doesn't know where to start. They kick them to us, and like we can't book any loads because nobody wants to work with this guy with 4 days of authority. And then also we booked some loads, but then the pandemic happened, everything was closed. It was really tough because the rates were awful when it's their first like taste of it on their own. And like we started at like a really bad time, I guess, because everything shut down, like new authorities. So like it was really tough sometimes, but very rewarding. And the business model is pretty simple, really.
Yeah.
So my question is, okay, so when you guys set that up, do you use their MC to book loads for them, or you guys book it through your MC and then just kind of rebroker it out to them?
So that's a good question. We do it through their authority, and the way I kind of like see it or describe it is it's essentially like, it's not the same, but it's similar to like an agency model with a brokerage, right? Like I'm an agent. Okay, if I'm dispatching for this truck, like I'm an agent of their authority. I'm essentially a 1099 employee, like contract worker for them, right? Like I'm calling on their behalf. I'm calling on a load. I'm saying, hey, this is my MC number. This is who I'm with. Calling about this load, and I'm dispatching it like I were an employee of the company, and also like for these companies, a lot of them like they need that, but they don't have enough trucks or enough trucks to really like justify hiring somebody full time, right? So it's similar to like what do you call it? Like a shell dispatcher. They've got shell COOs and that sort of thing, like outsourced part time work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's the service that we were providing for those guys, and it was
That's
It's good.
That's kind of crazy because you have to say you have 10 owner operators and they have 10 different MCs. So you have to have 10 different emails, logins, right? Because you got to hit them up from your email, from their email, or you still hit it up.
Yeah. So I'm doing it. So we got my email address, my email handle to this day is hopkins@compass-dispatch.com. So yeah, like a lot of brokers are iffy about dispatchers that don't have like a company email handle. But the way we did it is we just did our email handle right. And depending on like who we were looking at the load for, we would just provide that information. So it does sound like, I mean, with all the double brokering and scams going on, like it does sound a little, I don't know, some
Sketchy.
people be wary of it, but yeah, but it is above board and it's legit. And like some dispatchers will give just third party dispatchers a bad rep because I mean, again,
Yeah.
the issues with it is like, look, hey, we're collecting 8%, so I'm incentivized by like gross revenue and the least amount of loads booked. So if I am not doing a good job, right, like I'm just going to book this poor guy on a load from, Washington to Florida and Florida to Washington, and not care about like if he's making money or not. Like, some people will do that, or they'll just not do a great job worrying about the carrier's reputation. Like overbooking them, missing pickups, not updating brokers. They start giving freight guards. I mean, me personally, brokering freight, like I've had some bad experiences with third party dispatchers, and I think it's because it's not their company. They don't really care as much as somebody that is
Yeah.
part of the company. But we did a good job, man, and we really did care about those guys. And we built relationships with them, and we saw it as like, hey, we have skin in the game. Their company is our company to an extent. Like, let's take good care of them and do a good job. But some people, I don't know. Like I said, I've had some bad experiences with third party dispatchers. And it seems like they just don't really care.
Yeah,
Like,
they don't.
Yeah.
Well, most of them, I should say that they don't. And no, it is, and I think the government recently just passed a law, or like I read something. I think somebody was posting it, somebody on Instagram, that they passed a law where the third party dispatchers can legally, still operate in whatever the sphere of logistics.
Yeah, because that's actually what I wanted to talk about, is because what I heard was there's like no regulations for third party dispatchers, whereas like freight brokers have some kind of rules and I guess regulations they have to follow overall.
Yeah.
And obviously trucking companies are very regulated and a lot of laws and rules to follow, whereas like third party dispatchers like had like nothing, like no, I think it's like it was relatively new and it was like something that never existed. But even if you take into account like a third party dispatcher is obviously incentivized by how much revenue they book for the driver, they could also give them like lanes that are dangerous because they're like 1,000-mile days and forcing them to drive more, which obviously would be unsafe. So I think that's where a lot of the, I guess maybe people's like bad opinion of third party dispatchers came along. Same with like not caring.
Well, I think the bad opinion came where I'm getting a phone call almost once a day from Indian people, and they're like, "Hey, we could dispatch for 2% or 3%," and I'm like,
Yeah.
Bro, I don't think you can dispatch anything. But believe it or not, like to some of them, I actually talk and dive into it pretty deep. And dude, they know their stuff. A lot of them actually know their stuff, because I was asking which boards you guys use, and they're telling me all these boards, and I'm like, okay, at least they know something. So they're pretty, they get educated pretty well on logistics or in that business.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was pretty impressed.
From the factoring companies, they would talk about people overseas in different countries that were, because we wouldn't touch box trucks or sprinter vans. We would just dispatch flatbeds, dry vans, and sometimes hot shots. But they're always like, yeah, we'll just kick those to this guy. He does it for like 2% in this country. I was like, man, wow. And like they like spoke really highly of them. They're like, man, they do a great job. And some drivers are like, hey, like you guys are charging. And 8% is kind of steep. It is on the higher end, right? We did a really good job, but they say, hey, like this person's saying they'll do it at 3%, and at that point, it's just like, well, like I hear you, like I'm not gonna do it at 3%, but if they will, like go test it out, and they would, and I just check in with them, just like, how's it going? They're like, man, they're doing great. And I said, well, more power to them, they can do it at that level.
Yeah. So, well, if I may ask, so what happened with Compass? Because this was during the pandemic. Obviously, there's challenges. Can you tell us kind of like how that like you transitioned from Compass to BlackBox?
Yeah, so through Compass, we hired our first employee, still with us. Another guy I grew up with, went to school with. But so the pandemic happened. It wasn't as great out there, and we worked something out with our contracts. We were able to start when we were able to start at that point, because our main focus, I mean, the reason that we left that company, we were all successful, like had big books of business. We're doing well, right? We left that company to start our own brokerage to broker freight. So at that point, when we were able to start, it was, hey, let's shift the focus to the brokerage. At that point, my partner Logan, my other partner William, and our first employee David, they shifted to the brokerage, and then I got all the trucks dispatched, and we were still at that house, and I was in the bedroom I used to live in. I moved out by then, but I would just sit in that bedroom lights off, dispatching like 30 trucks in the middle of the pandemic, just every day, just awful for about 2-3 months, and then once I got enough business, because we were still under a non-solicit, so we didn't contact our old customers. So all the customers that they were landing were new customers, right? And it was still, again, things were shut down. It was a little bit harder to add business, but once they were able to add enough business, we kind of cut down on the drivers who were dispatching.
Okay.
At the beginning when we first started, it was like, hey, we'll dispatch anybody. Like we don't. Like, this is a new company. Like we'll take whoever, and then it gets to a certain point. It's like, hey man, like this guy's ridiculous. Nothing's ever good enough. He's gonna like yell, do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like brokers are calling me, asking me like what this guy's deal is. And I'm just like, man, I don't know. Those guys, hey, like we got to part ways. We got enough business now. I don't have to justify, like there's no reason for me to dispatch in this truck. This is ridiculous. Essentially fired him, kept cutting down, and then at a certain point I was down to maybe like 3-4 trucks, and I started brokering, and which kind of shifted to the brokerage.
Okay. Just wondering, I'm not sure if you want to share, but like at the height of it, when you're like dispatching, let's say around 30 trucks, like what were you making monthly on that?
So let me see. I'll do some numbers. So it varies. When we talk about like 30 trucks, and we had different types of equipments, different guys with different schedules, right? Like we had, there was one guy I dispatched up until about 2 months ago still, because he was great. He was this flatbed out of Fort Worth, and man, he was always ready to go. Like on the road all the time. He'd take whatever. He was just like, all right, where am I going? Like, man, he would send me a POD. I'd send him a rate cop, no questions asked. He's going to pick it up.
That's awesome.
So like that guy's, when rates were better, he was doing like 8,000 a week, and we're collecting 8%, which is like 640 off one truck.
Okay.
But let's just say like every truck is at on an average like 4,000.
Yeah.
And we have, let's just do 20 trucks. That's 80,000. That's 6,400 for a week off 20 trucks to 4,000. And really most of the trucks we're doing more than 4. Most of the guys that we had were pretty good about, like they would go, well, at that point we were onboarding trucks that were like, hey, I want to be home every night with like my brand new authority and 30-foot high. So it's just like, man, I don't like, I can't, I've tried, I'm going to let you down. You're going to be yelling at me. I'm going to be in this dark room, like looking at load boards at 10 p.m. It's just not worth it.
Were you working like 24 hours a day? I mean, I can imagine like you're on like when you're dispatching by yourself, especially, like just have your phone by you all the times, or no?
Yeah, I always had my phone, and when we were living at that house, when we first started, I was living at the house when we were working out of the house. So, my computer was like my setup, and I had a laptop, right? But I was always kind of looking, especially when those guys shifted to the brokerage, and I took on all those trucks. Like I was up like 4:30 a.m. on the load boards by like 5:15 and looking until about 6 p.m. It's not like all the time, but
most of the day.
Yeah, most of the day.
Okay, so how did you feel like transitioning from a company that was making money to like the brokerage? Like, did you feel like some sort of relief, or were you like, I kind of like wish that we still had that operating on the side?
Yeah, so we did have it operating, just on a much lesser scale for like quite some time, but so the brokerage was always the idea, and that's kind of like that was our vision, right? It's what we set out to do. But at the same time, the dispatching company was kind of my baby, right? Like we didn't know we were going to, we left the company, we got to wait out, like applying at Lowe's, and then if I was like, hey guys, like we can stay in the industry, we can dispatch trucks, and it's like all above board. And I got really excited about it, and I enjoyed doing it. So there's a part of me that was, a little reluctant to a bit for a bit, just it's like, hey, like we kind of like built this thing, and like it makes money. But the brokerage is, it's just better suited for like what we wanted to do and what we wanted to scale, right? So bittersweet, I guess, but also dispatching all those trucks during the pandemic with brand new authority. And I mean, it was a big relief. Like, it was extremely stressful. You're talking about guys like, calling like, dude, like I've got a family and like these rates, like I'm gonna lose my truck. And I'm just like, dude, everything's shut down. Like I'm doing the absolute best I can. Like you picked the worst time possible to go get, go lease truck and all this stuff. And it was tough.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I could imagine.
And I feel like it's not really scalable either, the whole dispatch and third-party dispatch. I mean, maybe in like a different country it is, because for them that percentage make kind of sense. But like in general, I think it's very, very hard to scale, because you have to like run with so many different MCs. Some broker is going to come along and be like, listen, you're obviously, not that I'm saying you're scamming, but he's going to think this is way too sketchy. I don't even want to deal with it, because sometimes you could screw up the MCs, you could screw up the DOTs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and right now, especially with so much scams going on, I feel like brokers are so much more picky. They want to talk to the driver. They want, all the information. They want the doors to match with everything. It's very, very more, I feel like, more strict.
Yeah, it's much easier to scale a brokerage, and kind of when we were kind of scaling back, I mean, there's some like outsourcing companies, right? I'm sure you guys are familiar with quite a few. The idea is kind of like, hey, like, why don't we like get these guys to dispatch these trucks? But at the end of the day, what Bob's saying is it's just tougher to scale. I mean, even getting somebody up to dispatch trucks and like be organized with the paperwork and not get MCs mixed up, it's it's tougher, understanding markets. Like if you bring somebody in, it takes a while to like really understand, like, hey, like that load going to Lake Havasu, Arizona pays a lot, because like, there's nothing coming out.
Exactly.
Start getting trucks stranded. I mean, even our first guy Dave, when we hired him, we're like over his back, but he didn't know any better, and we didn't have like real training set up, right? So I'd look over there and he's like booking this load to like middle of nowhere, North Dakota. I'm like, no, man, like don't do that. Just don't have. It's like, now.
But then even then, I'm like thinking setting up new brokers. So imagine you want to book a load and you got to set up all these brokers over and over and over again for different MCs. I feel like that's such a, I don't know. I'll not be able to do that, to be honest. So more props to you guys for doing that.
If they're online, it's not too bad. The only thing that gets iffy is that, like certain onboarding platforms, you have to get an email verified, right? So you have to get once you're approved, though, I mean, it's super, super easy. And if you have a carrier that's I don't even want to say tech savvy, right? Because it's really like the bare minimum. If they're able to just like know how to operate email and like forward something in a timely fashion, it's pretty easy. The paper packet's awful. I don't know why people still use packets. I just don't understand it. They're awful.
Cheaper.
I mean, the paper packets are always killer, but the online ones, once you've done it before, like if you get onboarded through, let's say, My Carrier Packets, and there's tons of brokers that use it. Once you do it one time, it's just click through. The OI is listed. It can be a lot if you get a bunch at once, but overall, well, when we talk about scaling, you have other people trying to do it, then it would get complicated.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking too.
Yeah,
because we were thinking of like kind of doing owner operator branch, because we have company drivers and we have owner operators, but I could see how much tougher it is just to work with owner operators, because they're way more picky, and they want certain goals and certain things to reach. So you just got to go through them. But yeah, it's just a whole different system. I'm just imagine all of them, because they all work under RMC, so they all kind of lease on to us, and then we dispatch them. So I'm just thinking, like, imagine if they had their own MCs and we had to go through each one and flip flop back and forth. And then I think the dispatchers would just hate it. So it would be very hard to scale. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, a little bit to change the topic, but it's also when you mentioned the Arizona load, where like nothing's coming out of Arizona from that. What did you say, Lake Havasu? Is that correct?
Lake Havasu. I think that's correct. It's somebody from Arizona might time in, let me know I'm way off, but I think it's Lake Havasu.
What do you think of the current freight market, and when do you think the freight market will improve?
So I think that, I don't think it's great, right? But I also think that you see like something, like some sort of, I don't even want to say propaganda, but almost like the world's ending a lot of times, at least my feed sometimes. Maybe that's how, they've got me like dialed in, but I see a lot of, doomsday type things. I do think that I don't see it a V-shaped recovery. I don't see like a massive bounce back. I think that I think that there will still be some capacity to bleed. I think that when things were really, man, a great example of what I'm about to get at is we had a long time electrician at our first office. I mean, been in business 15, 20 years, a whole like family business. And he came in one day, he's like, this is my last call. My cousin has some box trucks and they're killing it. We're shutting down this company. We're buying box trucks. And that's when I was kind of like, man, the end is near. Like it's about to get bad. Everybody starts getting trucks. I think that I think we still have some capacity to bleed out, but I don't think it's as bad as some things that I've seen, right? Like we're still adding customers, our volume's up, right? And our margin percentage is stout. We're not really experiencing that over here. Definitely things cost less, right? There's certain lanes that we're running that are paying about 50% of what they were, right? But it was too good. Then I think some people have kind of this view of freight and logistics of if they got started during that time, like this is how it's supposed to be, right? And like that's
Right.
it's not reality, like it's a tough industry and you gotta like work for what you get, and it's still out there. I just think that it's just not what it was, and I don't think it will be like that for quite some time, if ever.
Yeah, I agree with that. Bob, how's the market on your end from like the trucking side? Have you seen any improvements since I don't know, the summer, since last
Yeah,
we
I
talked?
think for us, I think it picked up a little bit, but I think the loads picked up a little bit out of certain areas, like northern east. It kind of picked up, but then again, like the fuel went back up too. So you're kind of dealing with that side of it. So it really depends, and we're just lucky to have some good brokers we work with and get good freight. That's literally what's helping us right now to get through it.
Sure.
But I can definitely see what Will was saying. A lot of people got into it and they expected it to last like that forever. And they just bought equipment and they bought trucks at a certain crazy prices. And they don't even understand how the business works. They don't understand that it's not that simple. You actually got to get out there and hustle and, and book these loads and just keep running. And pretty crazy.
Definitely. Those people will be out of business soon though, if they're not already out of business. So
yeah.
And then the market will improve. It's the
and not
cycle.
only that, like even from our side, like we were talking about dispatchers, a lot of dispatchers are just dealing with a lot of stress too, because they're if dispatchers are getting a percentage, right, a lot of dispatchers were getting a percentage. Well, they're making way less than they were say 2 years ago when trucks were grossing $10,000 a week. Right now, if a truck is grossing 6 or 5, they're making half of what they were making, plus they're stressing way more trying to find these good loads to book for their drivers. When like 2 years ago, you had, bunch of loads, just pick and choose whichever one you want, and it's just easy. Anybody can kind of do it. So I think a lot of, even from our side, we see a lot of, well, now I guess they're getting back into it, but before we would see a lot of dispatchers kind of quitting or doing something else. They're like, we don't even want to be in this industry.
Yeah, definitely. Will, what are your plans and goals for BlackBox?
So I mean, we've got quite a few. Don't want to get into them all, but like I said, right now we're really trying to like iron up our operation, get SOPs in place, get a lot of things that we can track, right? Like I said, we scaled from 3 million to 26 million in a year, and through that there was just a lot of things that we didn't have in place that we want to have in place, right? So we're really just kind of working on ironing up our operation, getting everybody where we want them to be as far as knowledge and efficiency. We're looking to add people. We'd like to continue growing at scale. So hopefully, we continue to grow, continue to add brokers, support staff, and I don't know, we're at 30 people right now. I'd like us to be at 50 within the next year to 18 months. I'd like to experience some more sizable growth because we only went from 26 to 31, second to third year. So like another big jump somewhere in there.
Okay. I'm curious, back to the agency question. Like, so obviously the agency collects some of the money, right? Like it's like a percentage based kind of fee that you pay the agency to work off their MC.
Yeah, so the most common setup, and really the only setup I know of, is just a profit loss split. And I mean those can range from, I mean, like anywhere from like 50 to 80%.
Okay.
So, and then as far as past that, I mean, there are different agencies or different companies might offer different incentives, right? Like you hit this, you get this or that. As far as the base setup, it's usually just it's always that I know of. There might be a different one I'm not aware of, but just a profit loss split.
Okay, got it. Cool. Bob, how's your brokerage going?
It's all right. I don't really know, to be honest. I'm more focused on the trucking side, so my partner's more focused on that. I just been super busy with the trucking side. So
Yeah.
he's doing all that. But yeah, we opened one up about a year ago too, so we'll see how it goes. It's a tough business, especially in the first year. I feel like it's very tough, to get into it and find even customers and shippers and all that. So
yeah, it's
and a lot of
definitely difficult.
yeah, and a lot of like factoring companies won't work with you, and I feel like a lot of carriers won't work with you. So it's like you're trying to solve 2 or 3 problems at once, because it's like, how do you get customers? If you get customers, then you got to get the carriers to haul this stuff, and it's just
Wow.
you're fighting the battle, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think he's doing good. I haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks, so I got to actually hit him up this week and see how's he doing.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, or to Will's point, it actually shows that being part of an agency helps you grow and scale when, obviously don't have millions of dollars in your bank account, which is the most difficult thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Will, before we wrap it up, just wondering what kind of advice you would give to entrepreneurs in the space. You've obviously built very successful brokerage, went from 3 million to 26 million quickly, rapidly. What helped you get there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have a lot more to learn than I know, right? But to this point, I guess the advice I would give is to try to be a sponge, learn everything that you can, expose yourself to everything that you can, talk to lots of people that have gone before you, about their experiences, what they did, seek constant feedback, and always be looking to grow personally, professionally, and work hard. And in my experience, the results follow.
Yeah, it's true that. I appreciate that. Well, Will, thanks for coming on the podcast today. Greatly appreciate it. If anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to find you?
LinkedIn. Just search Will Hopkins BlackBox.
Awesome. And if you follow Will on LinkedIn, you'll get a good dosage of good freight memes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Throw some likes on the memes.
highly recommend it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Good.
Thanks,
Yep.
guys.
Nice meeting you all. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Freight Caviar podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, or if you didn't, leave a review. Let me know what you think. I appreciate any feedback. If you'd like to have more Freight Caviar content, go to freightcaviar.com and subscribe to my email newsletter.